Okay, so let's have a look at our Xero integration and how, if you've got a business unit set up in Zahara, you should be able to connect it up to your Xero account. So I'm in a business unit called Hardy Construction. I've got a few tax codes and I've got a few nominal codes. You'll notice at the moment the only thing we've got is import nominal codes from CSV. We want to change that. So we go to Business and then Settings and then Integrations, and we change that to 0. And now we need to connect to Xero. So we're going to click the big button here, Connect to Xero. Now this should take us off to our Xero account. So I'm going to log in. Now I've got multiple companies in my Xero account. So I'm going to go to Zahara Test 1, which is my demo company. I'll click Allow Access. And if we go back up here, we can now see that we're connected to Xero and it's telling me which company I'm connected to. And it's going to tell me where invoices. If I post an invoice into or a bill into Xero, this is what it's going to go in draft, because we've got a choice of draft, awaiting or approved. So we're going to go with draft. So we'll save those settings. Now if we go to tax codes, we can see that we have a Xero sync button up here. If we go to nominal codes, exactly the same. We've got a Xero sync button. And same for cost codes, where we can sync in any tracks that we've set up. Okay, so back in tax codes, if we hit the Xero sync button, we've now flashed and we've got all of the purchase tax codes that have come in from Xero. You also notice we've got display and we've got default. So for example, if the default tax code in Xero is 20% VAT on expensive, just click that tick box there and that will allow us to use that one as our kind of default. If we were to go to the original ones that I had in there and I don't want them displayed because they're not actually Xero ones, I can just untick them. And now in the drop down list, they won't be displayed. Okay, so that's our tax code set up. We go to nominal codes and we click Xero sync. Again, we've got the standard set of accounts that's now come in from Xero that was set up for me. Okay, so that's all good. And then we go to cost codes and we get Xero sync. Nothing's happened because we don't have any set up. So in fact, we'll have a play with that in a moment. When it comes to vendors, as you can see, I don't actually have any vendors in or suppliers in Zahara. So if I click Xero sync, it's going to go off to Xero and pull back any suppliers. So if we have a look at this, test supplier, test name has come over. I'm now going to create a new supplier. I'm going to call it Dell. Del01 is my account code I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it an email address of none@none.com. And I'm going to say my default nominal code is 424. Default tax code is T2. Default cost code, we don't have one. So I'm going to add that supplier. And now I'm going to run a Xero sync again. And two suppliers sync to Xero, close. So if we now go back into Xero and log in, and we go to contacts, we can see that Dell Inc. has been synced over from Zahara to Xero. The most important thing I can tell you is if you want to make sure that these suppliers sync, if you get a problem where you've recorded a supplier in Xero or a contact in Xero and it just won't show as a supplier and won't come over to Zahara, the most important thing is to have the contact name exact and the account number exact as well. If you have two of those, then you can manually create them in both and they will sync up together. Okay, so that is effectively our Xero integration for kind of syncing. It's very easy to start syncing the suppliers and the tax codes and the nominal codes and things like that. If we were to go into this one here and we were to go to tracking, and we create a tracking category called software, and we'll call one Adobe and one Microsoft and one Apple, and we save that. And now if we were to go to business and cost codes and hit the Xero sync button, they've come straight over. So that gives you an idea that we can bring over what we call the tracking categories in Xero over to Zahara, but we can only do one. So if you've got multiple tracking categories, then I'm afraid we can only cope with one. So effectively that's it. The next thing to do is post an invoice into from Zahara into Xero. So let's do that. We're going to create an invoice. Supplier is Dell. We'll make up an invoice number. It's today's date. We'll put a product in, so Power Edge server at £500, and we'll say it's T2 nominal code. I'm going to pick one at 412, no cost code, carriage 25. Next, no workflow. Next, create invoice. There we are. So there's our invoice created, 373737 for Dell. If I click this and click export, that is now green. If we go into that invoice, it says exported the invoice into Xero. Click here to view. This will take us to the draft invoice in Dell, or bill in Dell, and you see we've got a link that will take us directly back to Zahara as well, and this is one that's due for approval, so if I wanted to approve it I can do. So I hope that's kind of confirms what the bill posting looks like as well. It's done from invoices. You just select it and hit the export button. By way of the green icon, if it's been successful or not. If it hasn't, if it's failed, it will be a red icon, and you can go into the invoice notes and see what the cause of the problem was. So that's effectively our integration. It's fairly straightforward, but quite kind of comprehensive with syncing and bill posting. So the advantage, of course, is that you've got all of Zahara's approval functionality, the workflows, the ability to get purchase orders raised and approved, and invoices recorded, send them out for approval before they get posted into Xero. So I hope that's been useful, and thanks for watching.